Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on another Learning Lab. Today, we're going to take you through understanding financial reporting with account groups, dimension structures, and how that all fits together. So just before we get started, let me do some introduction. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Fiona. I work in the customer success team here at Acuity24, and leading today's session is Shuaib. Shuaib is one of our Intacct consultants and is making his debut on Learning Labs today. Let me just take you through some housekeeping. So microphones, as per usual, will be muted throughout the session. However, in the go-to panel on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a question box. Please feel free to pop in any questions that you have as we go through the session in there. And at the end of the session, there will be opportunity to either take yourself off mute and you can ask away any questions that you have, or for any that have been put in the question box, I will read those out at the end and we'll do our best to answer those. Any that we're unable to answer, we'll let you know that we may need to take it offline and get back in touch with you. Also, the session is being recorded, so if you're unable to stay the whole session, or if you have colleagues that also needed to come to this session today, you will receive a copy of the session via email after we've finished. So please feel free to share that around with your colleagues or anyone who was unable to make it. That's all housekeeping from me. So the agenda for today is Shuaib is first of all going to take us through the account groups and a bit of an explanation around account groups. We're then going to go through he's then going to take us through the dimension groups and the dimension structures. And then lastly, he'll take us through putting together a financial report and how all of those account groups and dimension groups and structures come together on the report. Okay, that's everything from me. So over to you, Shuaib.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like Fiona said, this is my debut, so I hope I can be very informative today. So let's get the ball rolling. So the agenda has been discussed already, so I'm sorry. Okay, so firstly we're going to discuss account groups and then move on to dimension groups and dimension structures. Then I'll have a live demo. So just to go through some account groups, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with it, but just to recap, account groups are your fundamental building blocks of your financial report. So these account groups contain your GL accounts, which you want to include in your report. To add a GL account to a report must belong to an account group. So you can have multiple, one GL account to one group, or you can have multiple GL accounts to one group. The same account can belong to multiple account groups. So if you, instead of creating multiple different account groups and populating them in a report, you can just create one and use that one throughout different reports. Okay, so by nesting account groups, you can create a hierarchy of grouping for reporting purposes. The lowest level of the hierarchy will be your GL account, and then the hierarchy of the account groups determines the headings and subtotals for the financial report. So with the subtotals, basically, we'll go through that at a later stage. So just to make a note, making a change to an account group will impact all reports and graphs that contain that account group. So just make sure that you are aware of the impact that it will have on different reports. Okay. So dimension groups. Dimension groups are similar to account groups, although they're mostly used for filtering reports and viewing dimension list views, right? So it doesn't really come into reporting, but it's good for when you filter reports. Instead of just filtering by one dimension, you can filter by multiple dimensions in one go. So dimension groups are used to create dimension structures. With that being said, dimension groups, it has to be created first before you create the dimension structure. So dimension structures are used to filter columns in a financial report. Very important when you're building dimension reports. So if you want to say report based on a dimension, it's very important to create a structure, right? You can have a hierarchy of structures, which is a group of dimension structures. You can also have dimension groups within a structure, so similar to your account group hierarchy. Okay, so let's have a look in Sage Intacct. So firstly, I want to go through how to build your dimension or your account group hierarchy. So I've put this together, small little Excel sheet. So you can see we have our gel codes over there. So on the sheet, what we'll do is we'll work from right to left. I find this very helpful when structuring your hierarchy. So you can see all these GL accounts fit into fixed assets, which is going to be our next level of our hierarchy, which is fixed assets. Then fixed assets and inventory will go into current assets. So if we just follow the hierarchy level, it will go to fixed assets, and then you can see that current assets consist of fixed assets and inventory, and then fixed assets and assets just contains current assets and cash equivalents. So very good example of how to build your hierarchy first in Excel, and then follow this when creating your account groups and group of account groups in Intacct. So I've also added a column called normal balance. So this will affect your calculations and subtotals in Intacct. So very good also to make a note of this. It will either be debit or credit. So this will obviously affect how values are presented in Intacct. Okay, so on Intacct, first things first, we're going to look at the account groups. So on your drop down menu, you go to reports, setup, and then account groups. So most of you will have account groups already created. Just to go through some of these, so you can edit and view an account group, but the important thing is to view the hierarchy of the account groups. So this will just show you the hierarchy of the account group, and with this you can make sure that you are using the correct accounts and everything that you want populated in this account group is there. So you can see that this accounts receivable contains these accounts over here, and then we have account groups contract, accounts receivable, and allowance with doubtful, which all fit into place into accounts receivable and net allowance. Okay, so to add an account group, just on top of the screen you can click add. So the first thing is we have to name the account group. So I'm going to follow the sheet over here, so I'll just populate this on the side. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is create our fixed assets. So we're working from right to left, so I'm just going to name this fixed assets, and then if I click away, you notice that display on the report as this auto populated and display total line also auto populated. So I just want to have this on my report as fixed assets and the total line to be just fixed assets. This is your normal balance over here that I spoke about earlier. So this will determine whether it will show a negative or positive value on the report. Usually it goes according to your GL code, and then follows through from there. Right, account group purpose, very good field to create. So I usually create these for different reports that I am creating. So you can see I got a balance sheet structure. So I know all accounts within this purpose is for my balance sheet, and then I got a learning lab and a P&L structure. So it's good to categorize your account groups into the report that you want to be building. So it's easier when you build the report. It's easy to filter for the different account groups that you created. Okay, so I'm just going to set that to learning lab. And then we got our structure type. If we click the drop down, we have about 5 or 6 different structure types. The category and statistical category, this is very rarely used because this is set with your GL codes when you first do your initial build. So that's more for standard reporting. And then we have your accounts, which will contain just GL accounts, and then your group of accounts, which will contain account groups, which is that within that. And then you have your statistical accounts, which is the same as your accounts and just the statistical part of it. So for this one, we're going to create just accounts. And then your calculation period, do you want to calculate it over for the period? So if you set your reporting period to for the year, for example, it will calculate for the year. You can have it to start of period, so it will just have it calculate for the beginning of the year and then for the end of the year. Okay, so you notice that we got 4 boxes over here. So the first 2 boxes, this one and this one, right, it says from account and to account. So this just allows us to enter a range of accounts, and then this one we'll use to enter just one account. So for example, if I do that, I can just say, I can just click add, and then one account will be added. I can also select the range of accounts. So I'm going to select this range over here. So it's from 10 to 51. And if I select add, you notice that there's 3 dots between the 2 numbers, meaning that every account from 10 to 51 is included in this account group. So I'm just going to remove that. At the bottom, whenever you create an account group, you'll always have the report filters. So you can filter by debit or credit, department, location, or item. This just allows you, when you add it to your report, it will just look at, for example, a specific department. So if I set that to sales, for example, this account group will only pull in data from the sales department. Right, so you can put that on no filter, and then we can select save. Okay, so now we have our fixed assets account group, which is our lowest level of our hierarchy, basically. Sorry, it's taking a bit long. Okay, so on this page, so account group purpose, we can filter by this. So I've put it on Learning Lab, so it's easier to find what I'm looking for. So you can see that all these account groups belong to our Learning Lab for today. So this is the account group that we created today. So we just check the hierarchy just to make sure that all our accounts has been added. So I can see that from account number 10 to account number 51 is added. If we check that, that is correct. Okay, so now we're going to add another one, but we're going to add that account group that we created into our next level of our hierarchy, which is current assets. Okay, so we're just going to name this. Okay, again, I just wanted to display current assets, and my total line should just be current assets. Okay, my normal balance will be debit, and then account group purpose, I'm just going to set that to Learning Lab again. On the structure type, I'm now going to change it to group of account groups. So this allows me to select groups, right? On the first bar drop down, we have our account group purpose. So if I don't use that, it will just display all account groups in the whole system. So we're going to filter by the Learning Lab, which will just give us our Learning Lab account group. So part of our current assets, we can see that fixed assets and inventory is the 2 account groups that will belong to this group of account groups. So we can go ahead and select that. So it's fixed assets, and we just select add and inventory. We can just select add, and you can save that. Sorry, it was sorry. The filter tab is always there when you create an account group. So if I just view that, I can see that there's no filters on this report, on this account group, right? If I want to double check that, I can view the hierarchy. So now I can see, should display that I got a fixed assets account group and a inventory account group, which contain these accounts. Okay, so that's just to make sure that your hierarchy follows what you are building. Then we have reports over here. If we click on reports, it should display what reports this belong to, and then we have graphs. So if this group does belong to any reports or graphs, to just double check what reports and graphs this account groups belong to, you can just click on reports and graphs. It will give you a display or a list of different reports and graphs that it belongs to. Okay, so now we can move on to dimensions, dimension groups. Okay. Okay, so same procedure here, very similar to creating account groups, report setup, and then dimension groups. All your dimensions should display here, but if it doesn't display here, it would be under the module such as AP, AR, purchasing, and order entry. So you notice that we don't have the group or dimension called item. But if we click on structure, there is an item dimension structure. So to find the item dimension structure, we're going to go to order entry or purchasing, either one. So under setup, then items, then groups. This is where we'll create our item group. So you can go ahead and add an item group. So I'm just gonna name it. So I'm just wanna have a group for my sales items. I'm just gonna have that as sales items. Okay. Then we have a description and a group type. So from this, we're selecting all members. When this is set to all members, we have to put in a filter field so it can run through that filter and select different items from that list. We can also set it to specific members, right? And then from the specific members, we can use, for example, like select each individual one, which is it's not recommended if you are going to be constantly updating your dimension. So um, items we can use it, but if for example I want my sales item in this case, if I add new sales items, I'll have to come in here manually and update it, so we won't be using that one. We'll be using all members, right? So we're going to set a filter to item ID operator contains, and we're going to set a value which is the sorry, I'm just going to set this back to that so I can grab the ID. So we notice that all our sales items, sales only items contains this in front of the ID. So if we set that like that, right, we can remove this and then set this back to all members. So that was just for me to grab the ID over there, right? And then we have our condition type. Generally, we'll leave this to all and, but you can change it to any or all and expression. So then you'll put in your own expression over there, right? If we save that, and we can view the members again, same like account groups. If we view the members, we can see that it's added all my sales only items to this list. So even if I update my sales only items, it will populate over here automatically. Right. And then I always recommend that you have an item group or dimension group and dimension structure for all dimensions. Like in this example, it will be items. So if we view that, it will have sales only items, but it contains um, sorry, it contains your purchasing items as well. So if we check over here, we have the same group called all members, and if we view that, we have our purchasing items only in here, but the system regards it as one group. So if you are creating something like that that contains purchasing items and sales items, it will just form one group. Is creating one group would be enough. Okay, so on the sales item, what I want to do is I want to edit, and then the dimension structure over here. So earlier I said that in order for me to filter on a column in a report, I need to have a dimension structure. So clicking this allows it automatically creates a dimension structure based on this. So I don't have to go into a dimension structure and recreate this whole item group as a dimension structure again. So I can just save that. So now it automatically created a dimension structure. So if we go to report, setup, dimension structures, items, and then we can see that our sales item group automatically created as a structure. Okay, so now I also want to create a department structure, sorry, a department group. So same thing, layout is the same, so I'm just going to name this department sales and finance. So I just want, sorry, sales and finance. So for this group, I just want to see the sales and finance department. So I'm just going to select on my group tab, I'm going to select specific members. I'm also going to create a dimension structure for this group. I recommend that you always create a dimension structure for this, even though you're not sure if you're going to use it on your report as a column filter. So in case you want to in the future, it will be there created already. So I always recommend just having that tick box always selected, and then we want sales and we want finance as our members. So I've selected those two. If I want to update this in the future, I'll have to come in here and obviously come and add more members to this, right? When I select the group type as specific members, I don't have to fill in any filters, so it will automatically just add sales and finance to this group, right? And then you can save that. And then lastly, I want to create a department, sorry, locations group. So same thing. So we'll go to location, add a location sorry, I just okay. Add okay, so this should be, I'll just name it even. Okay, so the name auto populates. I want to select a specific member and I want this to be Cleveland. Okay, the same thing over there. So this is just for me to show you how this all fits in together with the report and how to build reports based on this. So now that my account groups has been created and my dimension structures and groups has been created, I can go ahead and build reports based on the dimension groups and structures and account groups that I created. So reports, all financial reports, and we're just going to add a report. Okay. Okay, so for this exercise, I'm just going to build a normal a balance sheet. Okay, report type, this is for categorization purposes as well as the report audience. So you can set this to specific, it doesn't really play a role in the report. So no matter if I add a, for example, a audience for finance, somebody out of finance can view this report unless I set permissions and yeah. Okay, report is always active, so by default it will be active. And then report structure, this is very important on this little tab over here. So accounts, when it's default to account, so we can see as a little example of how our report will look. So we have our balance sheet, assets, and then we'll have our accounts, current assets, long term, and then your equities over there and liabilities. Okay, we can see that our actual amounts will appear in our columns like that. If we change this to dimension, it will change the example that we're looking at. So we have our dimension on the left hand side going down, and then this will be your actual amounts based on your account groups that you select. If we select counts and filter by dimension, the group change, so we can see revenue is our count group, and then Kenwood Advisors Corp will be our dimension structure or dimension group. Okay, and then vice versa for dimensions, filter by account group. So we'll have our dimension first, and then which is expanded by our account groups. Okay, for this exercise, I'm just going to leave it on accounts as is, and then we're going to go down to rows. So on the rows tab, we're going to select our account group. Sorry, so you can see that there is no account selected, so we need to select our account group. So click select account groups, and then on the first drop down, we want to filter all our account groups by our learning lab, and then we want to add our account group. So if we look back at our hierarchy will contain the assets and the liabilities and equities. Sorry, I forgot to create the assets part of this. So I'll just go back to account groups, and then I'll add the assets. Okay. Okay, so assets contain current assets and cash equivalents. So current assets and cash equivalents. We can add that. Save. Okay, so just something I forgot to mention. So you can see that assets and liabilities doesn't belong to the hierarchy doesn't go further than that. So if we want to see a total based on this, we can create a computation group. So it's similar to creating an account group. So I'm just going to call this the net group. Okay, and then so same structure over there, but on the structure type, I'm going to select computation. Then I'll have this is where I'll build my computation. So the first thing I'll be doing is selecting my account group, which is going to be assets. So sorry, it will be assets minus my liabilities. Okay, and then display options, we usually leave this as is because The cents will be 2 digits, so after the comma will be 2 digits, and then we want to display it as a number. We can include a unit, so do you want to have it as pound, symbol, euro, dollar sign? So we generally leave this as is, and then we can select save. Okay, so back to our creation of our report. I'm just going to click add, and then like I said, we're going to build a balance sheet. I'm going to leave it on accounts, and then on our rows we'll select our account groups that we created. Okay, the first one was assets include. So once we select it, we have to click the include in report over there, and then we have our liabilities and equities over there, so we include that in the report. So now these two groups won't have a total line, so that's why we created the net group, which will give us our total line, right? This account groups, the way they are in order over here, this is how they will display on the report, but you can obviously reorganize them how you want to. Okay, you can select OK, and notice that our table has populated over here. So assets is our group, liabilities and net. So for the net, we notice that our detail level is all set to detail, right? We can set it to summary. So if I were to do that, so now it will only show me current assets and it won't display any accounts related in there, but it will basically roll up into current assets. So let's leave it like that for now. But for the net, I don't want to see any of the accounts because I can already see them here. It's assets and liabilities, which is in the net group. So all I want to see is there's a summary. Okay. Also, when it is set to summary, we can expand by dimension. So we'll get back to this a little bit later. So for now, I just want to show you what this report will look like. Then the basis for amount will be default from group. So this is your calculation based on your calculation period that I mentioned. So your for period and your start of period and end of period, and then always display. So this just essentially allows the account group to display even though there's no balance on that account. Okay, so I'm just gonna have that to set to all. You can untick them as you go along. Yeah, so you can go to columns, and then column one will always be your count, which is your account group basically. You can set it to account name, account number, and name. You can have them display, for example, in the middle, but preferably on the left hand side. Okay, so we don't need to do anything in column one. In column two, we got options, so we can change it from actual to different options over here. So we have computation, period comparison, we have budgets. If you're using budgets, you have a space and you have notations. So generally, the second column will be actual, and then the third and the other columns will contain different options over here. Okay, so the calculated value default, again, this is based on the account group that we built. You can change it to for the period, start of period and end of period, and then the reporting period. Do you want to report for this current month, or do you want to, so you have different reporting periods over there. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to set it to inception to date. That will just bring in some data from last year because this is a demo site. Okay, so column heading 1 and column heading 2, you can change this to whatever you want. So you can just click on custom header and change it to whatever you want over there. So we're just going to leave it as period name. Okay, and then column title, this will automatically be based on what column type you select over there. So you can change it. You have the ability to change it. Dimension structure, so to filter this column on a dimension structure that we created, you can just click in there and then select your dimension structure, your dimension first and then your dimension structure. Okay, so and then you can expand by. So you have different options to expand by. So you can expand by dimension structure or different other dimensions, which is department, location, items. If I change my reporting period to current year, I'll now have the option to expand by period, time period, which allows me to expand by quarters, months, or expand by budget periods. Okay. I'll just change that to back to inception to date. Okay, so nothing much changed here. We just selected our basically our rows, which is our account groups, and then we can preview the report. So we're not saving anything just yet. We just want to see how the report looks. So this is how the report will look as standard. Okay, so we see that our net doesn't show any account groups, but if I do select it down, the little arrow over there, it will expand different account groups and accounts like that. Okay, but I don't need this because it is already on top. So, okay. Okay, so we built a dimension group. So in order to use our dimension group, we go on the left hand side down to filters, right? We built department groups, location group, and item groups. So we set this by default, it's set to all departments, so we can set it to specific departments and then use the drop down box. So we can see that we have an account group over there, sorry, a department group over there, auxiliary department, which contains all departments, and then we have our sales and finance. So if I select that and I preview the report now, the numbers over here is based on sales and finance only, although the report doesn't show that. So if you're building a report for different users, just make sure that you do mention that the report is filtered by department, sales and finance only. So I'm just going to set this back to all. And the same thing goes for location, specific location, and you can see that we have different account groups, sorry, dimension groups over there. So we can just filter by that dimension groups over there. We have our as of date over there. When building a report, we always want to prompt this because it's going to run based on this value over here. So if I set that to a value, and it's going to be based on our reporting period. So for this report, we can see that it's only from 2021 to 2024. So if you don't have it to prompt, it will always run for the states. Okay, so we can go back to our filters. And then if you want to have the department location item prompted, we can also select that. So on runtime, it will ask you, do you want to run for a specific department location or item, or do you just want to run it for all of them? Okay. So back to the columns. Dimension structure, we built a dimension structure. So I want to filter this column by dimension structure. So let's say, for example, I just want to filter it by, for example, a location structure. So I'll just select that, the structure that we've built. So if I view that now, it will only show me values for Durham. Okay, so not much, you can see that. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to expand this by department. So I want to see the different departments within Durham and see where I can basically filter down into my data and where it's coming from. So that's what the expand by option will allow you to do. So when you expand by, you have different options, different dimensions that you can use. So for this example, we're going to use departments and then show department one level down with the roll up. So this is you have multiple options here. So these just display results in a different way. So they're very difficult to remember what they do exactly. My suggestion would be is just to start at the top and then set it and then preview it. Okay, so you can see that our different departments has been added to the report without me physically adding them. I just expanded it. So we have our finance and all the way to sales, and then we have our all departments over there. All right. Okay, so notice that this only gives me an all departments column, but if I select a different show option, so let's say one level down with summary balance, so if I preview that, right, it's similar, very similar, but if you do have a parent and child relationship in your department structure, it will show there are different children departments rolled up into the parent department. Okay, so just make way of that, and then we can look at the different ones. So all levels with roll up. Okay, so you can see that we have purchasing, which is a child relationship, and then we have finance, which is in purchasing is in finance, and then product development, and then product development. So you'll have a column, basically a subtotal of the parent column, which totals all children and parents into one column. I don't know, we don't really use that option. I generally use a all levels with individual balances. So I need to set that. Okay, so then I just see my parent departments and my all departments. Okay, there is one option that allows you to, well, it won't be to this one. um, okay, sorry. One of these options allow you to have another column which shows you, it basically shows you transactions not coded to any department at all. So it will have no departments over here, a column called no departments, and it will show you transactions for sorry, it will show you transactions that has been tagged to no department at all. Okay, so suggestion would be just to play around with this and see what suits you best. Okay, so, we can add another column to the right of this. So that one was just for Dharam, and then sorry. Okay, so for this one I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna change the dimension structure to a different location. Okay, I'm gonna expand by departments again, and then like that. So if I preview that now, so we can see that Dharam has its own departments up until all departments, and then Northumberland has its own departments up until all departments. So you can see that we broke the values down into different departments by location. So I've added two dimensions to our columns, which is location and department. Okay, so we can do that for the rest of the columns and the rest of the locations. So each location I built a single individual dimension structure. So if we go in here and view this, we can see that it only contains one location, which is Northumberland. Okay, and then if we add another column to the right, um, okay, so we can compare these to, for example, a budget. I don't have any budgets in here at the moment. You can have a computation on actual. So notice that the calculation, there is no computation available. So in order to use this feature or this column type, we need to go to the left, and under computations, we need to create a computation. Right, so this allows you to create a computation between account groups, or you can just add a constant. So if we, sorry, we can add account groups together, we can add gel accounts together, we can add a constant. So if we click on the little empty space, just click anywhere on there. So we can see that our variable is set to account group, which will be assets. So it will say assets operation. We can set the operation to whatever we want, and then our variable, we can select another account group. We can set this also to a constant. So if we say assets add, um, let's say 1000, for example, and we save that. So now this account group, whatever value is there, we're adding 1000 to it. So if we go back to our columns, we can select that computation that we just made now, and on the computation on actual, we can select it over there. Okay, and then on column, we can select what column of the value we want to add it to. So for now, it's just going to add it to everything for the total. But if I select it to for column 3, for example, to only take column 3, which will be Northumberland, from distribution to sales, it will take that and add 1,000. Sorry. Okay, so if we preview that, we should get a computation column. Okay, so we see that our computation column over there has been added. So we can see that it added 1000 to all to all the rows basically, only for the assets account group. Okay, because you didn't add a computation to any account group. Okay, so that's about it on how to use dimension, how to filter by dimension structure, and how to expand by different different dimension. And then our filters will be, our groups will use to filter on an entire report. So we can filter over there by our dimension groups. Okay, and then we can go to format. um, Over here, we generally select display zero balances with activity, display zero for future periods, display zero for columns. So we select all of this, and then negative numbers, I like to leave it as in the brackets, because I don't like the negative in front. It's easy to miss a negative in front or a negative at the back, but if it's in brackets, it's easy noticeable. Then we have annotations, which is similar to computation, so same procedure will follow there. Create a notation on an account group, or yeah, so you can create a notation and put it in there, as save it as something. So I'm just going to say example. Okay, so back to my rows, sorry, my columns. And if I add a notation column to the right, and down at the bottom there's a notation option over there. So notation, that was the one that we created. So if we preview that, that notation comes on that account group that we created. Oops, sorry, should have displayed. No, there we go. Okay, I can add it per line or per account group. Okay, so that's notations. And then permissions. Permissions, generally this depending on your setup, on your permissions in your company setup, this will default according to that. So mine has been set up to default to exclude everybody, but if you want to include them in the access list, just simply click that and press remove from exclusions. It will automatically go into your access list for everybody. Okay. And then we can add more. So do you want to add a individual user? And then you can select the users from the drop down list. You can also add a group of users. So if you have created groups of users, you can select them over there. Okay, same goes for the exclusion list. So if you have group everyone, you can just exclude a specific member from that, and then that specific member will be obviously excluded from this report. Okay, then next steps will be simple. You can add this report to my favorites list, add this report to a dashboard, schedule this report to run periodically, include this report in the report group. Okay, so that's generally what an financial report will be based on. So just to go over the steps again, create your account groups. Okay, then dimension groups, dimension structures if you're going to use it on the report. If not, just create your account group. If you want to expand this and not see it as for example, the accounts on there, and you want to see a dimension, we need to set this account groups to summary and then expand by dimension. So we can expand by, we have different options. So I'm just going to expand by item, and then I'm going to have it all levels with individual balance. If we preview that now, these accounts will change to dimension items. Okay, so you see that it changed to the dimension items. So this items is based on this account group fixed assets, which is based on the GL codes that is tagged to that account group. Okay, so that's another way of building a dimension report. So I'm just gonna save and done with that one. And then, oh, we need to always name our computation. So I'm just gonna name this computation. Okay, can save and done. Okay, so I'm just looking for it. Okay, so it's this one that we created. So when we create a report, we have different options like process and store. We can run it HTML, which is a live version of the report. And notice that when I run it, it asks me for my as of date that I asked it to prompt, department, location, and item. Okay. And then we have CSV export. This is export features. So CSV, you want to export in CSV, PDF, or Excel. You can schedule this report to run at a specific date. You can delete it as well. So I just want to go over one more thing before we run out of time. Okay, we on schedule. So okay, so I just want to build a dimension report, which is similar to building a normal financial report, but this time we are going to use dimension structures instead of an account group. Okay, so same thing over here. We're just going to change our report structure to dimension, and then we're going to go down to select our rows. So notice that this changed from select account group to select dimension structure. So we're going to follow the same process. I'm going to select item, and then I want all items to be in this report. So I'm just going to include the Outzilla dimension structure in this report. So I'm going to select OK. I notice that we don't have any details for Outzilla items because this is a dimension. It won't display what dimensions is part of that. We have to obviously make sure that our dimension structure is correct. So when we select our dimension structure, the columns tab will basically display an error which says values required. So we need to tell the report where to fetch the values from. So if we go to column 2 on account group, we need to select an account group, which will be where our values are pulling from, which account group and which GL codes. So I'm just going to select okay, so I'm going to select the profit and loss GL codes for this one. So if I just run this as is, it will show me values based on the account group Outzilla P&L, and then it will be on the left hand side I'll have my dimension. So same thing on the dimension report, you can expand by, so you can expand by time periods, expand by dimension, etc. You don't have the option for dimension structure because we already selected dimension structure on the report info. So selecting dimension just essentially takes away, it swaps around, it swaps around accounts, account groups with dimension structure. So basically it's a vice versa of a normal financial report where you'd select an account group for your first column. So we just selecting a dimension group for our first column, a dimension structure for our first column, and based on an account group. Okay, and that's it. We'll go through any questions if there is any questions, but basically that's basically how you would build reports. I think I've included tips as I went along, but generally what I would do is advise clients to build this out, and then from this maybe build a template of the report itself. So how do you want the report to look? Because this is just obviously a account group, so I would generally say build me a template of how you want it to look, because maybe you want it to look like the dimensions on the rows expanded by dimensions and structures, etc. So it's a good how do I say, it's a good practice thing to do before you build reports, because you want your reports and your groups to be in order when you do it. It's very confusing and messy when you go back into account groups and make changes to account groups, because you have a hierarchy of group of account groups basically. So changing one will change multiple and filter through the hierarchy. So try to get it right at the beginning and then take it from there step by step. Another tip I would give is to on when building a report, you cannot break the system. So I always suggest that you like play around with I just wanted to, so just if you are building a report, just play around with this with the stuff. It doesn't affect any of your books or anything. So just play around in the report to make sure that, or to find where your where where the the outcome basically suits you or suits your report requirements. So yeah, that's it from my side. If there is any questions, I'll just go through them. Don't see any questions.
Thanks, Shuaib. Yeah, no questions are coming at the moment. So if you do have any questions, anyone, please feel free to take yourself off mute and you can ask those. I'll just pop myself back on mute for a minute while we give that a minute for any questions to come through in the question box. But yeah, like I said, take yourself off mute and ask away that way too. Okay, no, nothing coming through at the moment. If you do have any questions that come from today's session, please do just email me if you've got my email address. Shoaib, if you just go back to the PowerPoint, please, and it's got my contact details on there. Go to the end.
Is it at the end?
Yeah, that's it. Next one, just
Okay.
there. Yeah, so if you do have any questions, that's my email address on the screen there. So you can send over any questions to me after today's session. We hope you've enjoyed today's session. It was certainly very thorough. Thank you, Shoaib, for putting that on for us. It was full of information there for us. I actually learned a few things myself. So thank you so much for putting that on for us. Just to let you all know that our next learning lab is going to be on the 22nd of August, and that's going to be covering our highlights of Sage Intacct's release 3 of 2024. The new release will be sent down to your systems overnight on the 10th of August. That's due to be released. So keep a lookout for that. You shouldn't need to do anything. That should all be done for you overnight. And then we will be going through the highlights of that release on the 22nd of August. So you should receive an invite to that session via email over the next week. If you haven't received that, please do get in touch and let me know, and I can get the invite for that out to you. As always, we do appreciate any feedback and suggestions of any future topics that you'd like to see covered. So again, please email me if you do have any suggestions of what you'd like to see covered in these learning labs. That's all from me. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do hope you've enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you on our next one. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.